Hey everyone, it's Heather Nichols, and today we're going to make an Easter card with the Good Egg Stampin' Stencil combo set. The Good Egg set has a red rubber background stamp that stamps all of the egg patterns, and then there's a stencil to add the egg shape, and you can use your blender brushes or a sponge dauber to add the colors onto the eggs, and then there's coordinating dies so you can cut the eggs out if you'd like to. For the sentiment on my project, I'm using the Handlettered Easter stamp set. I'm using the Easter Blessing sentiment, and I'll cut that out with the coordinating die. I'll be using the Stitched Rectangle Stacklets die collection. I'm using the largest size in that set. I'm doing a lot of embossing on this card, and so I have my VersaMark ink, white embossing powder, and a powder tool. For ink colors, I'm using Pink Champagne, Confetti Cake, and Potato Chip. I'll be applying the ink colors with my blender brushes. I have a yellow from the original set, and the pink and the blue from the pastel set. I'll be using multimedia matte for a liquid adhesive, and I'll also be using foam squares. First off, I'm going to start and emboss the red rubber background stamp from the Good Egg set. I'll be starting off by embossing that with white embossing powder on sugar cube cardstock. I'll set this up in my MISTI. I'm just placing the stamp into my MISTI. I'll close the lid of the MISTI to pick it up. I'm going to add the cardstock into the MISTI using a little bit of adhesive since a magnet is just going to get in the way. I'm conditioning my cardstock with my powder tool to eliminate static so the embossing powder stays only on the stamped image. And then I'll stamp the image with VersaMark ink, and then I'll cover the stamped image with white embossing powder and heat it with my heat tool to melt that embossing powder and emboss the image. I'll do these same steps to emboss the egg patterns on Pink Champagne, Potato Chip, and Confetti Cake cardstock. Next, I'll use the egg-shaped stencil that's in the Good Egg stamp set. I'm using pixie spray to hold that in place on my piece of embossed cardstock. If you look for the Tailored Expressions etched in the bottom left-hand corner of the stencil, you know you have it right side up. Then you're going to just lay the stencil over the image and just line that up so the egg patterns are centered both side to side and up and down in the egg shapes. I'm using my blender brushes to add color to the eggs, and I'm using a combination of Pink Champagne, Potato Chip, and Confetti Cake. I'm starting at the top with Pink Champagne, and then I'll move down to Potato Chip, and then Confetti Cake. And where the colors overlap, it gives me some different other color tones to complete the pastel rainbow. You'll notice that where the image is embossed, it resists the ink color, and then you have white designs on your colorful eggs. I'm using the largest die in the Stitched Rectangle Stacklets die collection to cut out my background. Once I have it lined up where I want it, I will use a piece of Scotch removable tape to hold it in place and send it through my die cut machine. I'm embossing the Easter Blessing sentiment using white embossing powder on Toffee cardstock. I'll set this up in my MISTI and set the stamp where I want it to go on my cardstock, and I'll pick it up with the lid of the MISTI. I'll ink that up with VersaMark ink. I'm also conditioning my cardstock with a powder tool, and then I will stamp the image with VersaMark ink onto the cardstock, coat it with white embossing powder, and then heat that powder until it melts to emboss the sentiment. I'm using my Sidekick die cut machine to cut out the sentiment with the coordinating die. It's very easy to lay this die right on top of the sentiment to line it up. Once I have it where I want it, I'll use a piece of Scotch removable tape to hold it in place and send it through the die cut machine. I'll also be cutting out 2 additional die cuts because I'll be stacking these up to pop the sentiment up on my card. I'm using the Good Egg dies to cut out additional eggs from the embossed eggs that I did on the different colors of pastel cardstock. I'll just line those dies up right over the top of the patterns and hold them in place with some tape and send them through my Sidekick machine. I'll cut out a variety of shapes and patterns so that I can pick and choose what I'm going to use on my project. I'm ready to put this card together. I'll start by attaching the background to a Toffee card base, just using my Scotch tape runner. For the sentiment, I will use my liquid adhesive. I'm using multimedia matte, and I'll just attach those layers of die cut together so that the die cut sentiment pops up just a little bit extra on my card front. And then finally, I'm adding those embossed eggs around my sentiment. I'll attach some directly to the card front with my tape runner, and I'll pop a few up with foam squares for extra dimension. Once those eggs are attached, my project is done. I hope you enjoyed learning about how to use the Good Egg Stampin' Stencil combo set and that you learned something new. You can find the supplies to create this project in the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.